real quick reiteration of my feelings concerning this whole thing. I am not a Patriots fan, but I believe this is without question the stupidest, most irrelevant, absolutely hilarious and pathetic spectacle that has ever befallen this going to hell in a handbasket league under its current leader, Roger Goodell, who doesn't appear to be going anywhere, by the way. Doesn't appear to be going anywhere. Robert Kraft today reiterated his support, his staunch support for Roger Goodell today, while also acknowledging that the Patriots will reluctantly accept the NFL's sanctions, draconian as they are, on the Patriots for what amounts to being something that is, again, as pathetic a spectacle as I can recall in following this league going all the way back to the early decade of the 1970s. To this day, to this very moment, I can't believe that the NFL allowed the horse to get out of the barn that spawned this ridiculous black mark on the league that brought the league down to levels that have ebbed so low that really the NFL off the field, I've said for years on the field, it's an unrecognizable entity. The product sucks now more so than it ever has. The lack of flow in the game, the lack of balance in the game, rules which have completely torn the heart out of playing fundamental, good, sound defense, the bullshit that is the defenseless player, and everything else. They've just castrated defensive football, and they've castrated the features of what football is supposed to look like and sound like and walk like and smell like, so on and so forth. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but I've been there so many times and I've done it. I think those who have been with me throughout the years understand, and they know exactly where I'm coming from with all of this. But now, as I say, the game on the field is an unrecognizable product. If anybody can recognize this man's NFL in its current environment, in this current climate of the National Football League, if this is the NFL that you knew and fell in love with, if this is the NFL that drew you to the game with a fidelity to be there every single Sunday, to really get into the NFL, to cherish it, to surround yourself with it, to embrace it, to cherish it. I mean, is this the NFL off the field that you remember? I mean, this league is a joke. What did I say the last time I was with you? It's a joke. It's a bad joke. It's a punchline. And so, too, is the face of the league, Roger Goodell. And instead of keeping this internal and handling this on a much different level, which is what they should have done, which is what real leadership would have done, they let these horses out of the barn, and this has become an absolute circus beyond anything that Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey ever could have conceived in their mind. And the league looks embarrassing right now. Embarrassing. A little air out of a football. A little air out of a football. Do I need to remind you that Tom Brady became quarterback number 935 in league history who's done something to fuck with the air in the football? A little bit less here. This guy likes a little bit more. Jeff Blake, the former Bengals quarterback, Jets quarterback drafted by the Jets, came out of East Carolina, if you remember. Jeff Blake said the other day, what are you kidding me? When I played in the 90s, guys were doing this left and right on both sides of the field. What are we talking about here? And the misconception that so many of you have as you stand there in judgment over something that's so irrelevant, so stupid. Your team would never do this. Your team has never done this. Bullshit. Are you kidding me? Stop with that. You're embarrassing yourself. You're losing total and complete credibility. Cut it out. I don't want to hear that. Grow up. And if you're a Jets fan out there, if you're a Bills fan out there, if you're a Broncos fan out there, oh, it's Brady and the Patriots, oh, cheaters, Tom Shady. When you stop being a child, when you get away from that sophomoric and juvenile bullshit and you start to be an adult again and you look at this thing on an even, ground, you do start to see how stupid this was, how hilarious this was. Was this worth it for the NFL, Was it really worth it to get to this point and to drag this thing through in the last 2 weeks, or the last week or so, I should say? Feels like 6 months, by the way, since they announced the findings of the flawed Wells report. Okay? Was it worth it? Was this in the better interests, Mr. Goodell, of your league, to bring this thing to such DEFCON 5 fucking levels? Are you kidding me? I mean, really, are you kidding me? To bring it to these levels? And so what happened today? So they got the NFL owners meetings going on out there in San Francisco. And Kraft is speaking. And by the way, he said, I told you, listen, Goodell's going nowhere. It's almost unfathomable. His credibility is shot so much that it boggles my mind how this man can sit in judgment and talk about the credibility of anybody else when his own credibility is in the sewer, for crying out loud. Are you kidding me? And today, he said, Kraft said he wants to defer to Goodell and reaffirmed his faith in Goodell's leadership of the league. Really? Leadership. This was leadership? What we've seen out of Goodell in the 8 years since he's been the NFL commissioner, that's leadership? The man has systematically and willfully torn the guts out of this league and has destroyed this league on so many levels in only 8 short years. Do you realize that the NFL, under the 8 years that Goodell has been the commissioner, has never been more fraught with problems, been more fraught with illegal things going on, has been more fraught with an image that has bottomed out? Public relations for the NFL has bottomed out. The industry of football is on the decline. Youth participation in the sport in the last 2 years has dropped 14%. 14%. The culture of fear that envelops the industry of football, never mind the NFL. In 8 years, 8 short years, this league has been in the crosshairs of more negativity, more scandal, more black clouds, more lawsuits than in the first 100 years of operation. You see, this isn't what people think about, but they should. Is Roger Goodell, is his NFL Paul Tagliabue's NFL? Is Roger Goodell's NFL Pete Rozelle? I start to laugh when I start to compare it to Roselle's NFL. Are you kidding me? Do you think Tagliabue would have got a report about footballs being a little underinflated and made this thing a fucking military tribunal? Do you think that either of those two men would have done such a thing to the NFL? The hell they would have. On one hand, there's two lines of thought I have concerning Kraft today and him saying that they're going to reluctantly accept the NFL sanctions. We'll get to Brady here in a second. But as far as Kraft is concerned, there's two lines of thought. The first line of thought is this. You know something? If this means that we can get this thing out of the way, all right, if this means we can make this damn thing go away more quickly, great. Although, the NFL is so flawed and so defective and so full of warts and so troubled and turbulent and so damn dirty that I even feel funny saying that. Let's get rid of this so we can just go on, because the next thing is going to come about. The next thing, by the way, since this show has been on tonight, has already come about. We'll get to that. But I want to tell you something. I said today when the news came down, I said, okay, fine, yeah, whatever. Kraft, you want to acknowledge it. You want to concede it. You don't want to fight it. You're going to accept the sanctions, reluctantly so. Okay, fine. Go ahead. Do it. Get this out of the way. It's one step in the process of making this thing go away, right? I thought that. And then there was another line of thought I had that said, Kraft really wimped out here. He really wimped out here. And he wimped out. And, of course, he said he was acting in the best interest of the NFL rather than, merely in the interest of his own specific franchise, which is a crock of shit, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. It's a crock of shit, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Hey, I'll tell you this. tell you this, Goodell is lucky that Al Davis is dead. And this wasn't the Raiders and was the Patriots. Because if anybody thinks that Al Davis would have taken this tact, would have taken this position that Robert Kraft did today, you got another thing coming. All right, Al Davis would have run this right up the ass of Goodell until it was coming out of Goodell's mouth, is what he would have done. But, because of what I consider to be negligent leadership by Goodell, and what did Kraft say here? Reaffirmed his faith in Goodell's leadership of the league today, while also conceding that they're going to reluctantly accept the sanctions. It is because of the fact that Goodell did not lead in this situation, did not use common sense, street smarts, instinct, and let this thing metastasize to the point where it became a national, global embarrassment, pathetically so for this league. Pathetically so. Because he didn't keep it in-house, because he didn't deal with it internally, because he didn't pick up the phone and call Bob Kraft and say, hey, before the game coming up this Sunday, by the way, we got these reports that maybe your footballs are a little underinflated. Maybe Tom likes a little bit of a softer football. He's been on record as saying that in the past. Maybe, just maybe you want to, we're going to weigh the footballs this Sunday. Just a heads up, Bob. No controversy. No DeflateGate. No nothing. No scandal. No embarrassing, pathetic, hilarious, absolutely damaging, yet again, scandal that the NFL is dealing with. None of that again. No. Everything stayed in-house, stayed in the room. NFL took care of it. I mean, as I've been saying for how long now, with as many other fires that are circling around Goodell, did he really need this one? Did he really need this one? Don't get me going on the conspiracy angle where I told you, the last time I was with, he kind of did need this one. And the reason he needed this one was because he used it in a very self-serving way. This was Goodell's way of coming back. He botched all the Ray Rice thing and some of the other the domestic allegations that were made with some other players. He's been criticized. The press has deserted him. In fact, they've criticized him. Many like me, now 5 years past the point of when I first called for his firing, now getting on my bandwagon, coming into my waters, joining my party, saying Goodell should be fired. The same people who used to shine his shoes in their stories. No. This was Goodell's way to come back and show that he's still got a lot on the fastball. This is my makeup scandal for the way I dropped the Ray Rice thing. This is my makeup scandal, baby. That's what he did here. Use this as a self-serving tool to enhance his own credibility or to try to prop up his credibility, which has been lost long ago. Long ago. And there was a part of me hoping that Kraft would continue and Kraft would tell Goodell, eat shit. I'm bringing this. We're going the whole way with this, baby. We're going to the end. And if it means that this has got to go in the courts and was going to drag it into the next season, well, you know what? I was hoping that that's what Kraft would do on the other hand, because you know what? It's exactly what Goodell and the NFL deserve for making this thing the mountain out of a little molehill. This damn thing in terms of competitive advantage and all that other bullshit when you concede that players have been doing this, quarterbacks have been doing this with footballs for years and years and years and years. I first thought that this was nothing more than a speeding ticket, a light misdemeanor. It's not even that. This is not even a moving violation. I mean, you want to contrast and compare it to something as far as, a vehicle? It's a parking ticket, for crying out loud, is what it is. It's a parking ticket. Stop. I was hoping that Goodell would take, or Kraft would take it all the way. And now, as far as Kraft saying that he was acting in the best interest of the National Football League, rather than merely in the interest of his New England Patriots, that's a line of baloney. All right? There was a trade made today. It wasn't announced. It will be announced soon. And the trade is that Raja and Mr. Kraft sat down and they said, hey, how can we solve this? Really, Bob, Goodell probably said to him, I really don't want this going too much further. I mean, this is bad for the league and so on and so forth. What can we do? And Kraft said, well, what can you do for me? And Goodell says, well, I said 4 games for Tom. Maybe we get it down to a game. Maybe we whittle it down to 1 game. Accept the penalties of the draft picks to $1 million. Listen, I'm cognizant of the fact that $1 million is, $100 to a guy like Robert Kraft. He could piss out $1 million inside this room, and I wish he would. All right? But, you know, when you think about the draconian nature of that, $1 million? Holy shit, $1 million. No. The reason that Kraft went on to say that he's doing this in the interest of the league and not his team individually is because a deal has been made. The deal will be announced, even though Brady and the NFLPA have said that they intend to carry on and that they're going to continue to appeal and, you know, bring it to an arbiter and maybe even into the court of law and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure how Patriots fans feel about this. I would think, and I haven't seen any polls yet. You know, I read all the papers. I'll go to the Boston Globe later tonight. I'll check out the Boston Herald. I don't know what the polls might be saying, but I'd imagine that they're running polls right now in both of those newspapers and asking Patriots fans how they feel about Kraft essentially caving today and accepting the sanctions. I'd imagine most Patriots fans are probably, if I had to guess, probably upset with Kraft. Probably think Kraft did the wrong thing here. I probably feel that Kraft, let them down in some way, let his quarterback Tom Brady down, which, by the way, stands to reason. How will there be a cause and effect here as far as Brady's appeal is concerned with the acknowledgement by Kraft, his owner today, that they're going to accept the penalties? Might this impact Brady's chances of appealing this whole thing so successfully? By the way, the Vikings and the Panthers last December, you remember the television cameras? And what were they doing on that cold day? Taking the footballs, putting them by the heater. What will that do? Will that not inflate the ball? You know, you warm it up, you know, make it a little fuller, better for kicking purposes, so on and so forth. Now, that was caught on tape, right? I don't give a shit. I don't care. Warm up the football. Go ahead. I don't care. Warm it up. Warm it up. Jerry Rice, you use Stickum all your career. I don't give a fuck. It's not going to make me think that Jerry Rice was any less of a receiver than he was. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit because I'm a realist as opposed to a lot of other people who want to play gotcha. They get off on this shit. They get off on playing the game of gotcha. I got him. I got her. I gotcha. Gotcha. Everybody's gotcha. Listen, if the NFL said tomorrow, by the way, Jerry Rice scored more touchdowns than any player in NFL history. Because he admitted he used Stickum his entire career, we're taking 100 touchdowns off his ledger, like they did with Paterno when they took the wins off his ledger in light of the Sandusky Penn State scandal before putting him back on. The NFL takes 100. Oh, by the way, how many touchdown passes did he catch in Super Bowls? We may want to, reconfigure some of the Super Bowl outcomes as well, because after all, Jerry Rice was using Stickum to gain a competitive advantage during those Super Bowls and during his career. So maybe the 49ers didn't win as many Super Bowls as they've got on their ledger right now. We may have to review that. But what we're doing right now is we're taking 100 touchdowns off of Jerry Rice's ledger and his bust inside the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. That's coming out too. I'd go to the mat for Jerry Rice. Are you kidding me? I'd fight tooth and nail for Jerry Rice because I'm a realist. Okay? I'm not some snarky little punk who plays gotcha. You know what I want my teams to do? Win. Yeah, but Dino, what if a guy's using Stickum or taking a little air out of the ball or putting more air in the ball? What about that? I don't give a shit. Win. You know, Al Davis, I brought his name up before. Al Davis, when he owned the Oakland Raiders, this is not too long ago, by the way. You're talking 35 years ago. You know what the sign was up inside the Raiders locker room? Could you imagine this today? Oh, give me that NFL back, baby. Give me the NFL of the 70s and the 80s and for the first couple, maybe the entire 90s even. Give me that NFL back. I loved it. I relished it. I bathed in it. I drank it up. Give me that NFL back. When men were men, played the game, nobody was, tattletaling on people. Guys were gaining a competitive advantage in any way they could. Everybody was doing it. Nobody gave a shit. You know, it was real, it was raw, it was football, and nobody complained. Nobody complained. Nobody complained. That wasn't the age of gotcha. Gotcha. Little sewing circles. Gotcha. How disgraceful. You call yourself a man? You call yourself a man? Huh? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Anyway, the sign that was up in the Al Davis Oakland Raider locker room 35 years ago, you know what it said? It was stretched across the whole fucking wall. You know what it said? Cheating is encouraged. Cheating is encouraged. You imagine that in today's scrubbed, clean, politicized, politically correct, mamby-pamby, Tom Shady. Listen, I want to tell you another thing. If you ordered a Tom Shady jersey from the NFL shop, if you're a man, turn your man card in tomorrow morning, please. Turn it in. A man wouldn't do that. Not a man. No. A child? A juvenile, sophomoric degenerate? Yeah. A man? No. Not a man. Now, could you imagine that sign in an NFL locker room today? Never. Never. The team might be, listen, you think Goodell came down in a draconian-like fashion with the Patriots? Goodell would, listen, he would have terminated operations for that franchise for at least 5 fucking years. If there was a sign in the locker room that said, you know, cheating is encouraged. Give me that NFL back any day of the week, baby. When guys could hit. When there was nothing in the lexicon called and there's still, listen, there's only one defenseless player that I know of. This bullshit where a receiver is a defenseless player. How is a wide receiver defenseless? What's he supposed to do? Fend off the defender with one hand while trying to catch the football with the other? One eye on the defender, one eye on the football? Fucking guy's trying to catch a pass. That's his job. That's the objective. The defensive player's job is to make sure he doesn't catch the pass. What is this defenseless shit? Defenseless? Defenseless is a guy returning a punt. The punt goes up in the air. He's under it. The ball's coming down. His eyes are firmly affixed on the football above his head. He's waiting for it to come down. A gunner's coming down at 20 miles an hour and smashes the shit out of the guy before the ball hits his hands. That's a defenseless player. That's the only defenseless player I can think of. That's it. This bullshit of this ingraining and brainwashing people into believing there's defenseless players. What is that? Defenseless. You're on the football field. How are you defenseless? In the act of catching a football? What is a defensive back supposed to yell, something to the receiver? Here I come. Don't catch it. Your mother wears army boots. Something like that? Holy shit. I can't take it anymore. I just can't take it anymore.